Over the years, I've said many times that The Half-Blood Prince is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series, and many people have tweeted at me, asked me in the comment section, and DM'd me asking why I thought this. So now, in this video, I'm finally going to answer that, and I'm going to explain why I feel that way. Though this is a book review, I'm going to use clips from the films because that will just make the video more visually pleasing and entertaining for you guys. Also, there are obviously major spoilers for this book, every other book in the series, and in turn the films as well, so there's your warning. Before we start, I just wanted to say that I'm going to stop using the YouTube community tab as much as I have been and start using other platforms more so that the Movie Flame brand extends past just YouTube, just in case the worst happened and I lost the channel or something. So make sure you follow me on Twitter, which is the most important because that will sort of replace the YouTube community tab. I'll be posting the most updates there, and that's linked down below. You can also follow us on Facebook, and if you want, you can follow my personal Instagram as well, which is full of cute dogs, behind the scenes Movie Flame stuff, and just some fun posts. Both of those are linked down below as well. Now, let's get started. The Half-Blood Prince has some of the best character development out of all 7 books, moving their arcs forward, starting new relationships, and even having characters' arcs come to an end. But in order to understand why this is the best book, we need to look at the entire series. Every book has so many great character moments and development, but when simplified, each book belongs to a character. The first book obviously belonged to Harry, as it was our introduction to his character. The second book belonged to Ginny, starting her first year at Hogwarts, writing in, throwing away, and stealing the diary, and obviously being the one behind all of the attacks. The third book belonged to the Marauders, Sirius, Lupin, and Pettigrew taking center stage, plus the constant mention of James throughout the book. The fourth book belonged to Barty Crouch Jr., the man behind the plan of putting Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire and pulling the strings of basically everything that happened, including Voldemort returning. The fifth book belonged to Neville as he came into his own with the DA. His friends found out about his mother and father, and in the end, he came face to face with the person responsible for his parents' tragedy. The seventh book belongs to Dumbledore as we learn more about his past with Grindelwald, his sister, and his brother, as well as his parents. And the trio goes on a mission that he had set up with the objects given to them in his will. While all of these books focus on one character, the sixth book is able to balance the task of belonging to 2 different characters, Draco Malfoy and of course Severus Snape, who the book is named after. Let's start with Draco Malfoy. Throughout the series and the books before this one, Draco was always an enemy of Harry's, but he was nothing more than a schoolboy bully who bragged about his family's wealth and blood status. He clearly modeled his cold and bullying nature after his father, the man who, according to Rowling, he admired most. However, while Draco was always there, he did not have a true arc until this book. His role model and hero had been sent to Azkaban, he and his mother had fallen from grace, and they were pariahs among the Death Eaters due to his father's failure, and in turn, Voldemort gave Draco the dangerous mission to kill the most powerful wizard in the world. Draco's existence had been sheltered and protected up until this point, but now with his father gone and his mother distraught and afraid, he had to assume a man's responsibilities and carry out a task that he was meant to fail and pay for with his life. This book went from 50 to 100 with his character, and did it in a way that flawlessly studied the complexities of how fast your life falls apart when falling from grace. The moment when Draco cries in the bathroom and opens up to Moaning Myrtle, a pair that Harry himself noted was most unlikely, we see that the boy that we once knew, the confident and petty schoolboy, was no more, and for the first time, Rowling made us pity Draco. Rowling, however, did the complete opposite with Snape's character. Instead of making us pity him, she made us hate him far more than we already did. Rowling took a huge risk in the beginning of the book, and did something that went against everything she had done in the successful series so far, and that was telling the story from a different point of view than Harry's. This had sort of been done before, but it was under much different circumstances. The first chapter of the first book did this, but this was before we knew Harry and before his character was even established, so here we didn't really leave Harry's point of view, as we were never introduced to it. And in the fourth book, we have a scene at the Riddle Mansion, but this ends up connecting to Harry's subconscious as he was able to see and dream the sequence. So the Half-Blood Prince was really the first one to completely separate us from Harry, and it broke the boundaries and gave us one of the riskiest and most shocking chapters in the whole series. We see Snape greet Narcissa and Bellatrix, and we see him state his faith to the Dark Lord, information that blew my mind the first time I read this. Rowling didn't have to add this chapter, the book would have been fine without it. But because she did, it adds so much to the reader's point of view, because we as an audience know something that the characters do not, something that up until this point had never been done in the series, because we always knew what Harry knew. And because we have this information, we see Harry and Dumbledore's arguments in a different light. Although Dumbledore affirms his trust in Snape throughout the novel, because of the information that we have, we actually support Harry's suspicions that Snape is a traitor. Had she not added this chapter, however, we probably would have sided with Dumbledore, the all-knowing, unstoppable wizard. Adding this was very risky on Rowling's part, because the writing style from Harry's point of view had been so successful, but because she changed it up and did it well, it really makes this book stand out more than the others. Snape's loyalty is questioned by someone on each side. With the Order, Harry questions him, and for the Death Eaters, Bellatrix questions him. And ultimately, because of this chapter, Snape's moral standing is more difficult to define than any other character in the series. All of this adds a twist to the mystery of this book, mystery being one of the most common things in the series. It's something that pops up in every book in the series, and in my opinion, this is one of the things that Rowling is best at writing. Again, to understand why this book is the best in the series, we need to look at the series as a whole. So let's compare the thing that every single book is based around, the mystery aspects. In The Philosopher's Stone, the mystery was who was Nicholas Flamel. In the Chamber of Secrets, the mystery was who opened the chamber and who was behind the attacks. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, it was who were the marauders that made this map. In The Goblet of Fire, it was who put Harry's name in for the tournament. In The Order of the Phoenix, it was what was behind the door in Harry's dreams. In the Deathly Hallows, it was what did the Deathly Hallows symbol mean. And of course, in the 6th book, it was who was the Half-Blood Prince and what were Draco and Snape up to. The thing that makes the mystery in this book more compelling is the fact that it was based around two established characters that have been there from the start of the series and have played huge roles in every single book. As a result of this, it makes the audience more invested in the Half-Blood Prince mysteries, because for Snape, it changes our whole outlook on his character, and it makes us question everything in the 5 books before this. And for Malfoy, it changes everything for his character moving forward, and makes us look back at his role in the previous books, and makes us pity him. The reveal of Snape being the Half-Blood Prince, the thing that the entire book was named after, might be one of the best reveals to any mystery in the series, because it was right after Harry saw Snape kill Dumbledore.
I'm the Half-Blood Prince.
After defending the prince all book to Hermione, Ginny, Ron, and everyone else, Harry swearing that the prince was a good person, he painfully finds out that the very person he had been defending all year was the man who murdered his friend and mentor. And looking even deeper, this in turn makes it so both Harry and Dumbledore were essentially crossed by the same man, making the mystery of the Half-Blood Prince and Snape's true loyalty even more pronounced and painful. Draco's whole character arc ultimately comes down to his moment with Dumbledore on the astronomy tower. During this scene, the mystery of what Draco was doing is finally revealed, and this is in my opinion one of the best parts of the whole book, because we again pity Draco and see that he's not a killer. Dumbledore does everything he can to make Draco feel like a child, revealing that he'd been watching him all year, that he knew it was him that cursed Katie Bell and poisoned Ron while trying to kill him, and Dumbledore even joked about his own murder, making Draco feel small. And again, looking deeper, the fact that Draco was pleased by Dumbledore's praise for figuring out how to get the Death Eaters into the castle reflects the extent to which he really is a child and not a true Death Eater. Contrasting this, while Dumbledore treats Draco as a child, he treats Harry the opposite way, treating Harry like an adult.
Once again, I must ask too much of you, Harry.
Harry and Dumbledore's relationship blossoms in this book. It's one of my favorite relationships in all of the series, and one of the main reasons why this book always stands out to me. They were coming off of the very intense and eye-opening conversation from the last book, which I actually argued was the most important conversation in the series in another video. So seeing them interact here was very interesting, and the whole concept of Dumbledore training Harry for his final fight against Voldemort is one of the most intriguing parts of the book, because it really cements the hero and mentor trope. As he trains Harry, they become closer, and while Harry always trusted Dumbledore, Dumbledore now begins to trust Harry. He values Harry's opinions, asking him numerous times what he thought of the theories that he had constructed, and he tasked Harry with the almost impossible mission of getting a memory from a man who did everything he could to hide that memory. And of course, he let Harry accompany him to get a Horcrux. But beyond just training and missions, there are moments that dive deeper into their personal relationship. Dumbledore protects Harry when Fudge, and later his replacement Rufus Scrimgeour, want to use Harry for their own political gain, and Harry ends up doing the same thing for Dumbledore when approached by Scrimgeour, saying that he was Dumbledore's man through and through, something that Dumbledore was so touched by that he began to cry. It's moments like these, moments that hold so much emotion and sentiment, that makes me love this book, especially because after the relationship becomes so strong, it's cut short when Dumbledore is killed. And as I said before, this also fulfills the classic hero and mentor story arc. The main point being that the teacher's death forces the hero to fulfill their own destiny without them. Something that even more fittingly, Harry realizes while he's at Dumbledore's funeral. Well, I've pointed out a few things that makes this book stand out because it's different. At the same time, it also feels recognizable, and that's because Rowling actually made this book have many similarities to the very first book in the series, bringing us back to the series' roots. For starters, we begin from a Muggle's point of view, looking in on the wizarding world. In the first book, it was through the eyes of Vernon Dursley, and in this book, it's through the eyes of the Muggle Prime Minister. We also see a contrast between Harry and Draco's first meeting in Madame Malkin's. The first time they met there, neither of them knew who the other was, and they were not yet enemies. But when they meet during the Half-Blood Prince, they've been longtime enemies, and we see just how far they've come over the past 5 or 6 years. The biggest and most notable parallel between the first and the sixth book, however, once again comes back to the character that the book is named after. In both books, Harry constantly questions Snape's loyalty, while all of the adults around him deny this. Harry was sure that Snape was going to steal the Philosopher's Stone in the first book, but in reality, he was actually protecting Harry.
Snape was trying to save me.
And this time around, Harry thought that Snape was responsible for Dumbledore's death and thought that he was working for Voldemort. But once again, as we find out in the next book, everything he was doing was to protect Harry. It's poetic, really. Now, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll know that Voldemort is my favorite character in the series, and this book is one of the main reasons why that is. I've talked about his past a lot, so I don't want to go into too much detail here, but it was a brilliant move on Rowling's part to build up this villainous character that we hate, and then have us dive deep into his past. Just like with Draco, we sort of pity Voldemort, and when Harry shows signs of this, Dumbledore asks, "Could you be feeling sorry for Lord Voldemort?" As we see more and more memories, we see Voldemort's progression of evil and his transformation as he makes Horcruxes, and it's so fascinating the way he charms and manipulates people to get what he wants. This is a far different villain origin story than most, and these flashbacks or memories are in my opinion some of Rowling's best work, and that's saying something. Even though this is the second to last book in the series, surprisingly enough, this book introduces us to quite a few things, some small and some very big. We're introduced to Inferi, dead bodies reanimated by dark wizards. We get some new characters like Horace Slughorn, Fenrir Greyback, and a few other Death Eaters as well. And for the first time, we're introduced to the idea of Harry being branded as the chosen one rather than the boy who lived. As the boy who lived, people either pitied him or questioned why he survived. But now, as the chosen one, he's viewed not as a boy, but as a man, and as everybody's last hope and savior. The biggest thing that's introduced in this book, however, is of course Horcruxes. Rowling was originally going to reveal this plot point in the second book, but she decided to hold off. It's pretty huge to reveal something so instrumental to the series in the second to last book, but yet it's brilliant. If Harry had known about this in the second book, it would not have had the same effect, because it's the thing that pushes Harry to want to finish this once and for all. Now, I know that I said that the focus on relationships in the Half-Blood Prince film was awful, but in the book, the relationships were actually really well done. In the book, they complement the story, while in the movie, the relationships dominate the story. Rowling once again intertwines two things, this time two relationships, just as she did with the two characters that own this book. This time I'm talking about the relationships between Lupin and Tonks and Bill and Fleur. Ultimately, these two relationships play off of each other. Lupin refuses to be with Tonks because he's too old, too broken, and of course, because he's a werewolf. Then, during the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, Bill is mauled by Greyback, and despite the fact that his face is unrecognizable and the fact that he'll have werewolf tendencies, Fleur still says that she loves him and wants to be with him, inspiring Lupin to see his relationship with Tonks in a different light, proving that even in dark times, love always shines through, the thing that Dumbledore always preached. The line that sums this up perfectly is when McGonagall was encouraging Lupin, and she said, "Dumbledore would have been happier than anybody to think that there was a little more love in the world." I also have to discuss Harry and Ginny's relationship, which is my favorite couple in the whole series. There's a great metaphor about a beast inside of Harry that represents his feelings for Ginny, whether it be growling with anger and jealousy, or purring with happiness. The beast also represents his internal battle with how to tell Ron and how to go about this with his best friend. And ultimately, Harry and Ginny's kiss brings about one of my favorite moments between Harry and Ron, where Ron shrugs and gives him a look that says, "If you must," giving Harry the okay to date Ginny. I feel as though this book handled romance better than any other book in the series, especially the fifth book with Harry and Cho. I feel that this book's relationships were just written more naturally and were better fleshed out than Harry and Cho's relationship. Harry's relationship with Cho might have been developed longer, but longer doesn't always mean better. Their relationship just didn't feel true, while Harry and Ginny's felt so real and so right. The part that always sticks out to me is when Ginny is leaning on Harry's leg, and they joke around, Ginny saying that she told people Harry had a Hungarian horntail tattooed on his chest. We never really see raw, natural moments like this with Cho. And the same can be said about Hermione and Victor's relationship in The Goblet of Fire, which again was not fleshed out very well at all. The ending of the novel might be one of the best parts of the entire series, and is in my opinion, the best ending out of all of the books. In the books before this, we always knew what was going to happen. Harry's life and the structure of the novels had always been defined by going back to Hogwarts, but now with Dumbledore gone and Harry knowing about the Horcruxes, that structure is ruptured. Deciding to leave school forever marks a true departure from the rest of the series, and because this book goes outside the norms, it once again makes this book stand out far more than the others in the series, and is one of the reasons why I think this book is the best, because it's so different and has a different style of writing that fits this specific narrative. This writing style probably would not have worked in the other books, but it's so well paired with the overall story in The Half-Blood Prince. The ending left me wanting more than any other book in the series did, because now that they weren't going back to Hogwarts, what came next was unclear. There are so many things that this book does better than any other book in the series. Romance, character development, tone, mysteries that mean more to the audience, and it's able to balance all of this in such a perfect way. Half-Blood Prince is and always will be my favorite Harry Potter book. Thank you so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media to see more of my personal life and see more of this little dude. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook for Movie Flame updates. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be featured in the next video, plus get a bunch of other rewards, become a patron today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you press that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great videos on the way.